Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to go from beautiful Indiana, Noblesville, all the way down to the Bayou, deep Bayou, New Orleans, deep Bayou, where crocodiles or gators or snakes and all that kind of stuff is. But not even that. Your life being changed around so much during this process from getting married at a young age because the church says to you after you get married, you got to stay there. Trying to format your life. You have a kid now, um, but you still got that cloud over your head about you got to stay in this marriage because society said you had to do this. Then on top of that, once you get all this done, you ask yourself the most important question of all: what's next for me? How about 43 years old and saying, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to rewrite everything that people told me. Today on the show, we have a young lady who's going to share that remarkable journey all the way from the Bayou. Miss Jessica Gibson without the G. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
Man, your story I remember when we first started talking during the pre-interview, you was like, Andre, nobody would believe my story. And I said, on this
That's
platform, you would tell nothing but the truth about your story because it's all about you. Tell the viewers a little bit about who Jessica is before we really get deep down dirty into your story.
well, I'm a Indiana farm girl by birth. Grew up in Noblesville, Indiana, and through all of the things that happened in my life, moved down with my then husband to Louisiana. And in the process of all of that, I've been through thyroid disease, getting divorced, becoming an endurance runner, a Spartan athlete, and now a college student after 2020.
A Spartan athlete. We got to get into that. At 5'10", you're definitely climbing through some mud, some tree roping, and all the other stuff. So let's start with your
Yeah.
journey in beautiful Noblesville, Indiana, which is definitely grown tremendously along with Carmel, Fishers, and Westfield. Give them their shout outs. But you grew up in Noblesville. What was that like growing up in Noblesville?
It was a very slow farm life. I went to Hamilton Southeastern, but when I was growing up there, I mean, my cousins lived over a mile away, and it was perfectly normal to hop on the bike and ride over there in first and second grade without a second thought.
Mhm. So you wind up going to Noblesville's. Uh, that's a pretty big school right now, matter of fact. But what was the environment like? You said farm life. Like, what did you guys do? Like, did you milk chickens? 'Cause when I look at Noblesville now, you got to remember it's a city now. I can't even imagine if I ever seen a cow in Noblesville.
Yeah, the farm I grew up on is now a housing development with about 200 plus houses. But my grandpa farmed the land with my uncle. They raised corn and soybeans. We had chickens and rabbits that we sold for meat, and then he raised pigs as well.
You mentioned something about your church and all that. How did all this come into play with you getting married and following the rules and the regulations of the church? How did you meet this
Oh,
guy and so forth?
well, we met online through Match.com, and he lived in Noblesville as well. And I grew up in a Christian church where divorce was not something you considered. You take your vows till death do us part seriously. And when we had met, we got married pretty soon, about 6 months after we first started dating. And it wasn't until a few months after that that he really started to change. And I referred to him early on as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mhm. What do you mean when you said change?
Uh, the nice guy, the friendly guy would suddenly say the most vicious things and just make you feel like you weren't worth anything. You couldn't do anything right. You couldn't say anything right. You were the point of misery or the point why he's not doing well at work. There was just nothing you could do to make him happy.
You mentioned to death do us part. This is how you was raised.
Yeah,
Bible Belt, sometimes is what they call Indiana. Was the
that's
same
right.
was the same vows taken with your mom and dad and your family before them, that they all feel this creed?
They did, and they had the same point of view. And my mom resorted to divorce as a last choice because of the affair that my dad had, and it was something she put off as long as she could, but she knew that she couldn't stay in that relationship, and I ended up following in her footsteps.
When you say following the footsteps, take me down that road. You get married, you see the Jackal and Hydes, but how old are you when all this is taking place, first of all?
I got married when I was 20,
So
and
you
so
you still had a young mindset.
I did, and I knew that my then husband had been through a lot of trauma as a child. He was put up for adoption, and the family that raised him was a great family, but he had an older brother who was their biological son that bullied him. So he grew up being bullied and in turn became the bully himself in a way, or at least to me. And I stayed in the relationship early on because he was such a great father to our kids.
How many kids did you have?
We have two.
So when you talk about the Jackal and Hyde that you was going through at 20 years old, I'm thinking from a father standpoint or even a mother. If my daughter is being abused in any kind of sense, form, or fashion, I'm gonna kind of like, okay, I kind of respect the church's value, but okay, this is my kid. I mean, did you share some of these Jackal and Hyde's issues with your parents and they still condone you staying
No,
in this? Or you
no,
kept it
not for
secret?
several years. For kept it secret. I didn't want a marriage to fail. I didn't want to be a failure. And so I just kind of absorbed it, took it all in. He was still being great. And so I just figured that this is what married life was like. The old saying is, I guess, the honeymoon's over.
So let's do two sides of this scale. Let's tip the scales for a minute. You're in the Andre Hall of Justice. What was typical in the household versus how he was treating the two kids?
Well, he worked a hard job in construction, and he would come home and spend time with them after work. And my job was to manage the bills, to cook, to clean, to help the kids with homework. And then I also worked full time as well. And so, it was him being too tired after work some days where he just wanted the kids to leave him alone. And it became me playing referee. And it would be my fault if they bothered him when he got home and he just wanted time to himself.
And you didn't start seeing flags prior to saying I do?
Uh, Not a lot. I remember looking back through a journal I'd kept back then, and I had called him the Jekyll and Hyde before getting married, but it was just a glimpse. It was not something I thought was going to become the norm.
When it became the norm for you, what was that like?
Um, I consider it walking on eggshells. Every day, worrying about if he was home before I got home from work, or what kind of mood he was in when I was going to be seeing him next. If he was drinking by the time he got home, or if he's going to become the sarcastic person that I have to protect the kids from. Every day was just a gamble and almost dreading to go home.
You stayed for a long period of time.
I
Were th-
did.
were there ever moments when you said, I'm done. I gotta, especially when you have kids. I mean, do you wake up and say, I know you're 20, but you've been married for quite some time with him. Were there ever a moment that you said, okay, I'm going to walk away from this?
There was, and that was the one time he actually put his hands on me in our whole marriage because I said that I wanted a divorce and I was taking the kids. And that's when he threw a beer bottle into the wall, put a hole in the wall, punched through the drywall, broke his knuckle in the process, and put his hands around my neck and said, "You're never taking my kids from
Did you threaten to take the kids from him, or
me." I said I wanted to leave. I said they're coming with me because I couldn't trust him not to put them through the same stuff he put me through.
did you leave?
No, not at that point, and I should have. I should have just left right there, but the fear that that put in me at that moment, putting up a fight trying to get the kids away with him in that mood was not something I was in the right mindset to do at the time.
What did you do? You stayed. Then what? Did it change?
He turned the tables on me. He filed for divorce. We legally separated, and then his family helped him finance a high-priced divorce lawyer and accused me of drug abuse, had me do a hair follicle test and everything to prove that I wasn't on drugs, that I wasn't out of my mind. And it was the most humiliating thing in my life to have a huge chunk of hair cut all the way down to the scalp from the top of your head, and just to have everybody see you being accused of something you haven't done.
What did that make you? I mean, how did that even happen? How did he flip the script on you and then later accuse you of these crazy allegations?
Well, that's one of the things that I've learned over the years about narcissism is that they will take the things that they're guilty of and turn it around and blame their partner for. So he would accuse me of drug abuse. He would accuse me of having an affair, all the while he was the one doing these things.
Did you ever eventually your parents had to find out what was going on? That you
Yeah,
filed for divorce.
eventually his drug abuse and affairs got too much for him to hide. And then there was an intervention, and that was about the time that he had the opportunity to move to Louisiana, and we decided to pick up our lives and moved and try and start fresh.
Okay, so back up a minute, because some people will say that's crazy for you to even deal with. Did you even know what a narcissist was, or have you ever heard the terminology? So
No,
you
not
was so
until
you stayed with it because of why? Why did you? First of all, let's
till
go back. How in the heck did you clear yourself for the allegations? Because they probably child services is probably getting ready to take your kids until you can
well,
prove otherwise.
that was another thing he did. He signed over his parental rights to my mom. So it made him look innocent because he was choosing his in-laws for custody rather than his self and his family. And it was some twisted acts that he did. And it was just, I guess it's beyond words. I hadn't heard about narcissism, didn't know anything about it till I finally divorced him in 2020.
I've never heard of that. So he took your kids, he files for divorce, and how does he give, I guess, is a temporary custody to somebody
Yeah,
else? Where did was a judgment already found that he gets custody or joint 50-50?
no,
You guys aren't even divorced. So
no,
how did he do that?
I have no idea. I don't know what that lawyer cooked up, but it made me look like the bad guy because he was selflessly giving custody over temporarily to my mom.
I wow, that's crazy. Neither one of you
Yeah.
guys are, you guys are going through a divorce, but somehow or another, a lawyer convinces you. Did you have any legal representation?
No, I couldn't afford a lawyer.
Did the courts know that?
Well, it never got to that point. When the drug test came back negative, he had no leg to stand on.
Okay, we're gonna keep going because my mind is just like you said, this is crazy. Like, first of all, I'm thinking, how would you even sign paperwork to give your kids over to somebody when you haven't even been in front of the judge?
Yeah, I don't understand how all of that occurred the way it did. It sounded like I was getting railroaded and blindsided, and that's how it felt.
Did you talk to when did you ever did you go talk to all right, the church is why you stand. Did you talk to the church? Did you talk to your mom and dad? Did you talk to your brothers or your sisters about this, what was happening to your life? Because you got kids here.
Well, at that time, that's when I told my mom what had been going on and how he had been treating me. And she was completely blindsided by that because, on outward appearances, he was this great guy. He was able to win over every personality that you can put him against. He called himself a chameleon.
You said something really shocking. And I hate to bring it up, but it came out of your mouth. This is your story. You decided to stay with him. So what in the hell did he say out of your word, narcissistic mouth, that made you forget all of the craziness, almost losing your kids, a bottle basically almost hitting you across the head, fist going through the wall? Why in the hell did you go to, what did he say to you to make you go to the bayou?
He he said that it would be different, that it was a fresh start, that we could start over, things would be different. The usual promises of that's not how I really am, and we'll make a better life.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the story in general, because like you told me before we started, you would not believe this. So you
Yeah.
decided to go. What made you really think that he had changed? I mean, he's telling you words, but was he showing action? Did he start bringing groceries home, or some flowers, some candy? I mean, what did he do to woo you?
He started being more proactive in the kids' lives. There was a season where he volunteered to be an assistant coach with their church sports league, and he would go with us to Cub Scout meetings. So he was being more present rather than just all about work and sleep. And so I thought that there was some action behind those words.
The church fell for a hook, line, and sinker then, didn't they?
Yeah.
So you decided to pack up and move to the bayou. What was that like?
At first, it was really good. We adopted to a new life, had new friends. So it was a fresh start for a while. And then signs of the drug abuse started coming back. Signs of him talking to women outside of the house was starting to come back. And it took close to 7 or 8 years for that cycle to happen, but he fell back into the old patterns.
So for 7 to 8 years, your kids are getting older too as well. How
Yeah.
much of this do you think, and you can only speculate, did they witness? Did it affect them? How was their lives now? Because you uprooting them from their family structure, basically, because you grew up in Indiana, your whole family's here. Did you know anybody
Hmm.
down in the bayou?
Nobody.
How were your kids adjusting to all of this?
A new school and new friends. It was hard at first because they had grown up with the same circle of friends, and they adjusted pretty quickly. We had moved 2 doors away from another family that we became great friends with. They had 3 little boys of their own who were a little younger, but not too much younger, and they played with them on a daily basis. I think my son adjusted slower than my daughter because she is definitely her daddy's girl, and she blends in with more personalities than my son does.
You said the chameleon starts showing his face.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
Well, at this point, the kids are junior high, high school age, and they're no longer like the cute little kids that he was treating well. Now he's starting to turn his nastiness on them too, and I get in the middle and I buffer as much as I could, but it's just like instead of targeting me, he's targeting them to get to me. And
What do you mean
then
by
these
that? What do you mean when you say that?
he he would say things to put them down. My son was really smart in school, but he was lazy. He likes his video games. So my ex would pick on that and, make fun of his weight, tell him that he would never get a girl. And then he would turn around to my daughter and pick on her being too skinny. Or he would build one up to put the other down. Look at how pretty she is. And, why can't you be more like her? Why can't you be more like him? And he would just leverage stuff against both of them just to make them feel bad.
Mm. You mentioned you had a weight problem,
Yes.
300 pounds.
Hmm.
Were did you have this weight problem while you guys were married as well?
Yeah, it started early on. I began gaining weight, and I kept going to the doctor saying there's something wrong. I know something's wrong with me. I don't feel right. And they kept saying, well, you have pre-diabetes, and making me take metformin and just doubling dose after doubling dose. And I did my own research because nothing felt like it was helping.
Hmm.
And I went to my doctor and I said, I think I might have a thyroid problem. And they tested me and they said, you are at the bottom end of normal range, but we're still going to consider that within normal. And they just said, you need to diet and exercise more. But at that time, I was starving myself and gaining weight.
Was he supportive knowing your
Mhm.
condition?
No,
Did it add to the already questionable relationship and so forth?
but he never had a problem with me being overweight. And it wasn't until I started running and losing weight that he started to make points of saying I was having an affair with the road. I was having an affair with my exercise. And it almost irritated him that I was getting fit.
Um, did they ever address, because when you talk about your thyroid, you can overfry that thyroid and it can cause some serious medical complications. How bad did your thyroid actually become?
Well, one side of the butterfly shaped organ completely turned into a tumor. It was about the size of a golf ball. And then the other side was peppered with what they call warm and cold nodules. So it was barely functioning by the time they removed the entire thing.
So you're now on T3 treatment, armor thyroid, but you're
Hmm.
still dealing with trying to get your life in order. It's now shifted over not only to you, but it's spilling over in a manipulation of chess between your husband, the two kids, and yourself. But you see that there's some type of dysfunction going on. What do you do to protect yourself and your kids? You see something just isn't right here.
Well, my running was my protection. It was my stress relief, but my health was taking its toll. I had adrenal fatigue, and the thyroid function still wasn't, where it should be. So I was absorbing the brunt of the stress and the effect all of this takes on you, and getting interceding in between him and my kids wherever I could. Fortunately, my son graduated. He moved back to Indiana, and he's having a much happier life. My daughter adjusted much better. She graduated in 2020 after we had started the divorce.
What about yourself? I'm proud to hear that your kids have productive lives and got away from that situation as a team here. But you're still there. How do you get on with your life?
Well, it took a lot. There was a lot of trauma and stress I didn't know I had until I met somebody who was going through the same thing. So after I divorced, I started dating somebody who went through something very similar with his ex, and he's also a psychologist, and he recognized a lot of the things that I'd went through, and he kind of helped me work through that and build me up a lot stronger than I had been before.
What were some of the things that he recognized that you were going through or that you shared? Or was he more analyzing you because of his profession?
It wasn't as much of his professional opinion as it was like a shared experience of going through being the victim of having a spouse having an affair, being a victim of somebody who had narcissistic tendencies. He had experienced it firsthand, and he kind of knew that I felt like I wasn't worthy or worth of anything, and helped to rebuild my self confidence, which is one of the reasons I went back to school at my age, was because he made me feel like I could do
You went back to school. I'm not even gonna tell your age.
it.
I might already have when we started the show.
Yeah.
But congratulations, you went back to school. What's the purpose of going back to school for you?
Well, before I had kids, I had dreams of being a doctor. And I gave up those dreams to raise my kids. I spent 15 years in advertising and brand management only for the pandemic to tank that career. And one thing I learned through the pandemic is healthcare is not going anywhere. So, with my kids grown, I thought it was time to recapture that childhood dream and pick up where I left off. And so, I'm pursuing a degree as a physician assistant.
You know, nobody would believe your story because I know there's
I
more.
hardly believe it.
I know there's a lot more, but we had to condense it down to like 30 minutes for the show. But how how what's your is he even involved in your life now? Because you mentioned the word narcissist, and by him keep coming back and using the word chameleon, has he tried
Mhm.
to intervene back in your life or to derail your dreams in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
No, he hasn't. I know he has talked negatively to my kids about me, but the only time I've had to talk to him was when it was something regarding the kids. Our son, before he moved back to Indiana, he went through a depressive state, and I was over an hour away and couldn't get to the apartment of 10 minutes from him. So I called him for the first time since our divorce to ask him to check on our son. And then a few days ago, my daughter was in the hospital for emergency, and she got back home, and her phone was on AT&T, which lost service that day.
Mhm.
So I called him to update him on her condition.
What was his response?
Uh, he was not mean in any way. It was almost like nervous laughter. He kept laughing over the phone, and it was almost like he didn't know how to respond normally to me.
Eyesight is 20/20. If you had to go back to 20 years of your life, knowing you have a daughter, knowing you have a son, knowing that you were doing what the church told you to do, what you saw family after family doing, stay for better, for worse. What would you tell that 20-year-old girl if you had to look in that mirror again?
Well, the one thing I don't regret from that marriage was my daughter. But I would definitely tell myself, once she was born, to get out to run, because it's only going to get worse from where it started.
Leave the viewers. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time to share this remarkable beast mind state episode of your life. And I'm very proud that you're going to school, that you recapturing your dream. Your story is not to touch everybody, but it will touch that one particular person. Give me something that you use every day to keep that beast mindset going in your life.
Well, my favorite saying is relentless forward progress. I use that when it comes to work, to school, to running. When you get to mile 21 and you hit a wall in a marathon, relentless forward progress is that one foot in front of the other mindset that lets you know that, even if you're taking a bite of the elephant one bite at a time, you're going to finish the elephant.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.